please, Hilda.
Thanks very much, and thank you everyone for coming. And for those who know me by now, you're probably used to the disembodied voice. For those who don't, I have a laptop with a camera that doesn't work. I have an iPad with a camera that does, but my IT skills, I'm not confident to move in and out of screens and screen share. So trust me, you don't really need to see me. It's the time that you've invested to come along today and find out about these materials. Really overwhelmed at the turnout. So thank you so much, because totally appreciate the fact that everyone's really busy and get so many other things that they're doing. So coming along today is grand. Before we start, it's probably a little story of my own. I was introduced to network weaving when I was fortunate to do the network weaving learning series with the Q community. And it was a bit an introduction to the original handbook written by June Hawley, which is a great piece of work, but I felt a bit like, whoa, lots of information. And I found it quite difficult to take it all in. And then when I realized, actually, I don't need to take it all in at once. I only need to focus in on, if you imagine like a rainstorm and you're being soaked by the rainstorm, all I have to do is just focus on one drop. So I'm going to look at that one drop and I'm going to try and understand that one drop. As I began to understand that, I thought, you know, we don't actually learn to network. We network, but we don't actually learn how to network, how to make our networks effective, how to develop ourselves in the roles that we have in networks. And when we came out of the learning series, I was so enthused by this that I wanted to share with others. Is there a way that we can raise awareness and develop further learning around making our networks more effective and also ourselves as network leaders? So the reason I've put this little fountain up just now is because whatever's been happening before you've came to this session and whatever's happening next, it's a bit like a cup or a fountain. Our minds can only take in so much. We try and take in anything more, it overflows. And how many times have we went to an event, a learning opportunity, the launch of a new resource, and at the end of it we thought, wow, that's amazing. I'm really looking forward to using that. But other things get pushed in, and before we know it, it overflows and it lies there on our list as something to go back to when we've got time. So there was a little misprint in the session today that said it's going on to 2:30. It's not, it's only going on to 2. So there's a half-hour gift. Please use it to be kind to yourself, or to use that time to reflect on the raindrop from today's session that you want to focus in on, because we are going to share a lot of information, but this is the beginning. For some, it's a journey people have already been on. For others, this is new. So it's going at a pace that works for you. And just taking that moment just to pause, just to let the things that's already in your head just empty out for the next hour, and be curious about this new suite of resources, which were really put together to be helpful, to try and reduce some of the stress and challenges that so many of us are finding, because none of us alone have the solutions. So we work together, the real magic can happen. So what I would invite people to do, first of all, is reflect. Why do networks matter to you? And then if you don't mind, share that in the chat box. Why do networks matter to you? Yeah, it's important that we look at the relationships as well, because that's what makes networks successful, is the relationships that exist between its members. Yeah, whole system change. because no individual, group, organisation, institution alone has got all the answers. And finding a common purpose, understanding each other's story, understanding why we come into this job, why we're doing what we're doing. Hi, Matt. Welcome along to the session. We're just exploring in the chat box why networks matter to you. But give yourself a moment to come into the Zoom, just letting you know what's happening. And for all we won't identify anyone from what's in the chat box. If people are comfortable with it, I'll capture what's in the chat box, because that's actually the ongoing story of where we go next. By listening to each other's opinions, finding out what matters to us. Because when we understand what matters to us, then we can find areas of commonality and work forward together. Next thing I would invite you to think about is, and welcome anyone that's coming late, we're just doing some questions in the chat box just now. Why do the networks matter to the wider community you're part of? Now, it's really interesting that we've got quite a spread of people coming from different parts of the UK and Ireland. We've also got people coming from different sectors. We've also got members of the public. We're all members of the public as well. So we're members of so many different communities. So pick the one that's got most relevant to you. Why do the networks matter to the wider community you're part of? Hello, anyone that's just joining us. We're just sharing some thoughts in the chat box. We're looking at why do networks matter to the wider community you're part of. Please don't apologise. Take a minute to collect yourself. Make sure you've got a cup of tea. This is a relaxed space. I value very much, we value very much the time that you've given to come along today, so thank you. So we can see that a lot of the things why networks matter to us are also why they matter to the wider community. Because alone, we are limited in what we can do. When we get together, we can do so much more, and that can help take forward. So someone had mentioned inequality. Inequality is something we all feel very strongly about. And we'll put the link in the chat box, but if people are free on the 29th from 1 to 2, we're actually launching a new poster put together with a colleague I met on Hexitime, looking at the unequal swimming lane as a new way to think about inequality. So for the communities that we serve, addressing issues of inequality matters to them. So the networks that we are part of who are working towards that can help the communities that we serve work towards their goals as well. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. And please, if you want to put anything in the chat box as we go along, please feel free. So as Joriam said, how we got to this point was we listened, heard, shared and reflected. We had very interesting open space conversations. We had used one of June Hawley's techniques, peer assist, to come together and share areas that was common concern. We had some active learning sessions where we practiced some of the tools, then reflected on how we found them. We were involved in a variety of other events, including the QI alumni event that was held in May last year with Healthcare Improvement Scotland and education, NHS education in Scotland, which was all around network weaving. And what we were trying to do was to understand what are some of the challenges that people actually have within their networks. what's already out there, and how can we adapt the materials that June Hawley had, and with June's permission, into something that perhaps can help a little bit. It won't have all the answers, but perhaps it takes us one step closer. So we really would like to thank so many people for sharing their wisdom. We particularly want to thank the Health Foundation and the Q community, because thanks to funding through the Support and Q Connections programme, and I would highly recommend that to people, that provided backfill costs to enable this work to happen. The Liberating Structure SIG, because there's such synchronicity between LS and network weaving, so it was really, really good. Wider Q members, people who'd attended the Network Weaving Learning Series, the Alliance, Health and Social Care Alliance in Scotland, particularly Mandy Andrews, for the support that they gave in working with us to help this roll out in Scotland. Soapbox Design, who did the actual design of the materials, and so many more people. Every single one of them, including those who painstakingly edited and re-edited, because anyone that knows me, apparently Proust is the only person who does longer sentences. And I tend to talk the way I speak. So there was really thanks to everyone who was involved in editing, really appreciated. And these were the things that people really identified as being helpful to develop their networks themselves, to be able to invest time, to have a wide range of ideas and tools, to have the knowledge and skills to support how effective their networks could be, to feel comfortable asking for others to support their networks, being confident in evaluating the effect of their networks, being able to help the networks move to action. We've all been there, do you know what I mean? Or why we're meeting, I don't know, let's have another meet to talk about why we're meeting. When are we ever actually going to do something with it? And there's a lot of tools in network weaving that can help that, and also being mindful of our own self-care. Now, as part of this, we were delighted to connect with Hexatime. If you're not a member of Hexatime, I highly recommend it. It's a time bank for people interested in improvement in health and social care, where you give an hour and you get an hour back, and it's phenomenal. You create your own profile. If you have an offer of something that you want to offer to others, then you put that onto Hexatime. People who have an interest in that area can see it and they'll contact you. You're awarded a credit. And if you have a request for help, which I've used numerous occasions, then you can use a credit that you've got to give to someone else. And Molly, who's presenting with me next week at the unequal swimming lane analogy, I actually met on Hexatime because I had put out a request, working staff wellbeing, special interest groups, and getting that can help me think differently about some of the challenges that's coming up. Molly kindly connected with me. One thing led to another, and there's this cracking idea that she had that we've created a poster of. So if you're not a member of Hexatime, highly recommend it. And the things that I've just listed off there are goals that are going to be posted in Hexatime, so that if in future people think, oh, I do actually want to develop my role as a network weaver, Hexatime can offer a platform where you can set goals for yourself and also some guides. And that is a conversation for another day, but it's to give you a heads up to the fact that resource exists. They're transitioning to a new platform, so please be patient. If you go on and think, right, that's not went through quite as smoothly. Anyone that's been involved in IT knows launching new sites, launching new platforms, you have teething problems, but bear with it because the original was super. So I'm really excited to see how the new one works out. So what we heard informed the development of 3 resources: a curiosity poster, a tools and resources booklet for effective networks, and a reflective workbook to consider our own roles and who we are within our networks. And I'm now going to pass you back to Joriam, who's going to talk a little bit more about each of the resources.
Perfect. Oh, I get the best part of the call. First of all, folks, you already have in the chat box the links of everything I'm going to talk about. Just a more asterisk here. We have the 3 resources I'm about to show in multiple spaces, but this one that I'm sharing is the latest version. We still need to update a couple of ones, so I would encourage you to look at the Club Scotland website instead of the other pages where it's at, just to make sure you have the latest version. And I initially thought about showing you the slides, just like Hilda was doing, but then I changed my mind. I think we should have a look at the resources themselves so that I can give you a more practical look. How would it look like if you were trying to use this tomorrow, next week? So let me share my screen and let me share with you the three resources in order. And you can think about those resources as increasing in level of depth. So if you're not very familiar with network weaving, with all of those tools and resources we're talking about, you start here with a curiosity poster. The curiosity poster is exactly as it sounds like, is one page that will introduce you to a couple of highly relevant rabbit holes. So if you're interested in sharing and learning with others, you're introduced to all of those keywords and you can explore them one by one in your own pace. But those are critical pieces of knowledge this around this topic of interest. The same with other resources. If you never heard of liberating structures, just being introduced to that term is just incredibly valuable. And maybe you've been introduced to liberating structures and you know how valuable they are. You can imagine that everything else in this poster also presents the same level of value or similar level of value. So if you don't know where to go, if you're new to all this is where you start. Okay. So now let's increase the level of depth. Let's go for resource number 2, the twos. Tools, ideas, and resources to help support Nurture and Weaving Networks booklet. And this booklet starts already in the first page because this cover here is how you find what you're looking for in the book. As I mentioned at the beginning, Hilda ran this incredibly collaborative process based on people's challenges, the real life challenges that people talked about when we were organizing calls with them. So this is not out of anybody's individual mind. This has been like a month-long deep process to identify all of the items in this circle. And if you feel you're struggling with mapping your networks, you already know where to go. If you're struggling with finding time, there's a completely different suite of resources here. And so let's give it a look. Again, the same items as above are here. This is just a bit more visual. This is just a bit more linear. But let's say that you identified that you're struggling with generating ideas. Your group has been very stagnant. So you can come here and you will find the tool, a brief description of what it is, what does it do, and a link for you to explore this tool further. The same will go for all of them. So let's say another topic of interest, hassles with hierarchies. If you're struggling with power dynamics, if people who have too much power stall your processes, what can you do? And again, there's a bunch of different tools just to deal with this one major topic of interest. So, and you'll find that maybe 6 thinking hats wouldn't really work for your situation. And that's the advantage of you finding 6, 10 different tools here, because one of them might fit your situation perfectly. And yeah, so the process of identifying those challenges and also gathering those tools was tapping into the collective intelligence of the Q network. So no single person in Q, not me, not Hilda, not anyone, could have gathered all of those challenges and tools. But what Hilda did that is novel and incredible is just to compile it in a very easy to explore booklet. So again, you find your challenges here, you go to the appropriate page, and then you can explore the more specific tools for your challenge. And last but not least, we have the reflective workbook. And as I said, we are we're diving into more depth, more depth, more depth. The curiosity poster is something for you to just reference. So you're going to spend 5 minutes with it and like, oh yeah, I'm going to explore this set of tools here. And then you go give it a look. The other tools and resources booklet we just saw, you're going to spend a bit more time with it, right? Oh, I'm struggling with the power dynamics. And then you're going to spend a couple of hours exploring those tools, figuring out how you can use them. Maybe you're going to go to the Q community to ask an extra question. Oh, hey, folks, have anybody used this tool that can orient me on how I can go? The reflective workbook is a step up in that. This is a resource that is inviting you to spend hours with it. So this is an individual process of understanding your networks and your roles within them, and where are you going and where would you like to go. So after the first few acknowledgements page, here's Hilda. She's not a disembodied voice. This is how she looks like. And then you get to chapter 1 that explains how to use this book, and you're gonna notice that it proposes a journey. You're gonna have to spend some time reflecting, just like the title of the book says, and this will give you sort of a path on how to think of your next steps network wise, how to expand your network, how to improve the quality of your network connections in the direction that you want to go. And for the other ones, it's fine if you use online. Honestly, for the second one, it's even better because it's full of links. For this one, I would recommend you folks, if possible, of course, that you print it, because you will see that it's full of those moments here that you're invited to sit down and write down your thoughts. And truly, if you want to use this resource with all the power that it was created to offer, I would recommend that you actually sit down and do it. Just a moment to stop the absorption and engage in creation, even if it's a small creation that could complete those 3 sentences that are proposed in page 8. This is very important for the brain to reach this state of mind of future projection. So you're not just there as a spectator, you're there as a co-creator with the book. And sure, the page 8 is the first time that this happens, but if you carry on reading, you will see that this happens often, because this book is proposing a dialogue with you, a conversation with you. And of course, the book will not propose what you should do or what you should want with your networks. The book will just gently guide you to answer those questions yourself based on your current context and the context that you would like to reach at a certain point. So this is a deep process that is not going to be you're not going to deal with this in just an hour just reading the whole thing. No, you should take a while. This is also a book that you should take pauses, reflect upon what you thought about, maybe spend a full month with it, not engaging with it every day, but giving yourself a couple of days just to process those questions and this information that the book is challenging you to think about, really. So what I like about those three different pieces, the three tools, is that they don't compete with each other. They have completely different functions, but they sort of point you towards a progression. So you start here like, okay, those are all the interesting things that I can explore. What am I curious about? Oh, I'm very curious about what open space discussions would be. Let's dive into this rabbit hole. This is here, the second one, more practical. Oh, now that I've thought about it, now that I've explored a little bit, let me actually find the process to run with my team, to run next week in 2 weeks. Oh, I can try one of those tools here. All of the explanations that I need are exactly here. And finally, okay, so how do I, looking at my career, looking at my future, how do I progress from here? I understood that I have all those tools available. So now how do I use them to progress with my wants and needs network wise. So for us to progress any further, do we have any questions? Yeah, no questions?
While people are maybe thinking about a question, someone had popped in the chat box, is there a hard copy available? I'm afraid there's not. It's only available in the format that it's in. The advice I would give is you could use either print off, as Jordan suggested, or get a blank journal, either online or hard copy. And where it prompts questions, is just make a little note in your own personal reflective journal as to what questions that you've been answering. We wanted to try and produce something that was visually inviting. We also recognise that there may be people maybe like that in different formats or different languages. Our budget didn't run to that, but we are sharing it under Creative Commons. So if people want to take it and adopt it and adapt it, all we ask is that the original source is credited the same as we did with June Hawley. But please feel free to adopt and adapt. This is about getting it out there in the world and helping improve our networks.
Hisham, you have a question?
Yeah, well firstly, thank you for bringing this into the world. Really, it feels like it's been a gestation here, and it's kind of given birth to something which is going to be really potentially valuable, but also maybe even evolve with time. So the first a big thank you for that, and then the second question really is more of a practical one, which I'm thinking about in my own context. So I'm head of QI in my hospital, and I recognize that there are hundreds of people that I know of within my organization who are interested in change and change management and quality improvement and so on. But there are quite an amorphous group who know one another and don't know each other. So that's I guess, one of my many networks. And I'm thinking, would that be the kind of a population that I would then be thinking about engaging as I go through the workbook? Is that how you would envisage that happening? Is that is there a group that you would be using this to work on, I suppose, is the question I'm asking.
If you want, Jorim, I'll take that, and then if you want to add to it, I would say that there's different ways it could be used. You could have a community of practice of people who already are interested in improving network effectiveness in their roles as network weavers, and that might be a safe space to begin exploring the resources, because it's people who already are experiencing some of the challenges of change and the whole banging into walls, which we all go through while we're trying to find the door. So maybe starting with a small community of practice. It's one of the things I'm hoping to create between Hexatime and the Q space, is a community of practice around the resources, so that people who are using them, if they want to come together and share with others who are using them, spin off other ideas, other tools and resources. But I would say the place to start would be with a group of people who are open to take on a leadership role of promoting the message of network weaving, because the language itself, network weaving, a lot of people go, what does that mean? It's just an intentional, non-hierarchical network working towards a common purpose. But a lot of the time we talk about network and we mean forum. We talk about network and we mean meeting. Or we talk about network and actually it's an agenda coming from on high to meet specific targets and everyone's being mobilized towards that. Whereas network weaving is a lot more relational, it's a lot more collegiate, it's a lot more, you come as you, whatever power, authority, wisdom you have, you bring with you, but it's you that's in the room, and everyone who's in the room has got something to contribute. So I would say a community of practice. And I'm more than happy if anyone after the session, I'll pop my email address in the chat box. If anyone after the session wants to have a follow-up chat about using the materials in their context, give me a shout. More than happy to do that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Well, I think it's time for us to progress then. So, as I said, this was part of a long process that really looked to ask people questions and find real life challenges and real life tools that people already experienced, uh, and collect this not theoretical but practical experience into um, a searchable, easy to comprehend, easy to explore set of tools. But this process is not over. We are thinking about running exactly the process that created those documents for the documents. So I would like to invite you to this call here that I already shared the link before, but I'm sharing again right now in the chat. That is the same process that created the documents, but now on the use of the documents. So this next session is a practical session. This one we're thinking more about enchantment and curiosity and just celebrating launching those incredible materials, because celebrating is so important, and we spend so little time just recognizing that we finished a goal. But the next one is going to be a bit more on the practical side. We're looking for people who would like to give one of those tools a try. Like, I'm going to try to use this next week. Oh, I am struggling with one of those areas that is mentioned on the resource toolbox. So I'm going to have a look there and see if I can solve my problem. And then we're going to run a session, just like the sessions that created the documents, where we have a conversation about the real life scenarios. Were the tools useful? Were the tools intimidating? Were the tools very easy to use? We're looking exactly for that. And we will also answer all of your more application-oriented questions that you have over there. So the link is in the chat, and I hope to see you all there. And I think that was my bit. So with you, back, Hilda, please.
That's great. Thanks so much. I was just popping some stuff in the chat there. The sessions, we normally do flash reports. So if there's ever a session that someone misses, if you go to the document section of the Nurturing and Weaving Special Interest Group, and it's open to guests. So you don't have to be a member of CUE, but I notice some people are curious about becoming a member of CUE. Highly recommend it. It's phenomenal. I've had so many opportunities since I joined. So I would highly recommend it, and you meet some amazing people. So the documents will be on the document page if for any reason, or if you go onto COPE Scotland's website, you can download it from there. They're also going to be available from the Alliance website, and we're going to try and get them in as many places as possible. I noticed my colleague Sheena from JCVS have come along. They kindly offered us a platform to share about the materials as well. So we're hoping we're going to share them to the JCVS site also, and also through our colleagues in healthcare improvement. So really, we would like the materials to get out there as widely as possible. So just to quickly move on. We held a session, I'm going to say April, I think it was April, where we used the network maturity matrix. Now this was a bit of a gamble, because this is a very informal group. People drop in, drop out. So if people can make a session, that's great. If they can't make the session, we'll get the flash reports. We're maybe going to look at how do we do more recordings that people can catch up with, so that even if people can't make it along, they can still find out what's happening. So using the network maturity matrix is usually with a kind of established group of people who regularly come together, as opposed to drop in and out. But hey ho, we went for it, because we're very much about creating a safe space, not being judgmental, and supporting each other. And it was actually a really interesting exercise. As the convener of the Nurturing and Weaving group, I was really amazed, right? Because it was like, oh, really? That's a lot more positive than what I thought people were going to say. Shouldn't admit to that, but hey ho, yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised, because to me this has been a very organic process. Anyone that knows me knows I'm into organic processes. So actually I was quite pleased that people enjoyed that. But the things that came up next was that people were interested in a community of practice, as I'd already mentioned to Hisham, around promoting the value of learning around network effectiveness. Also, to do blogs and podcasts, and I think that kind of fits in with the recordings, and it's something that we're going to look at, but again, we'll be led by my background is mental health nursing, but I've spent 30 odd years being led by lived experience of communities. This is also a community. So the topics for the blogs and podcasts will be led by what we hear people want to hear about. And we're also keen if people want to share their wisdom, because this is just one raindrop, 2 raindrops, 3 raindrops, a lot of other raindrops out there, and it's how when we come together, we actually create something spectacular that makes a change. I'm going to do more active learning sessions. So again, the session that Joriam spoke about, we're keen to see, well, is there any particular tools that maybe people would think, oh, I would quite like us to go into that in more detail. So we're going to do at least 4 of them. An increased awareness of learning opportunities, and that's kind of a bit like the curiosity poster, but we're looking at how else do we do that? How else do we make sure that people know these opportunities are there? And that's something else that's going to be looked at with my colleague Mandy, is pulling people together to actually promote that these resources are there and how can they be rolled out. We also recognise the value people found in peer assist, which is just coming along in a confidential, safe space just to talk about challenges within networks, because it's pretty much similar challenges many of us face, and then looking at different techniques from liberating structures or from network weaving to create that space where we can be heard and we can share and we can build up the relationships that help support us to have the most effective networks that we can have, and to be the most effective we can be ourselves, while also looking after ourselves as network guardians. June Hawley speaks about different roles within networks, coordinators, and network guardians are quite often the most challenging, because that's where you feel you're holding the baby and trying to keep it all together. And you need to be a part of all those different roles, but sometimes being a guardian can be quite isolating. So I'm quite keen to reach out to other people who find themselves in that space to create a safe space to look at how do we look after ourselves while we are trying to help build a momentum for change. We hope this gives people an increase in confidence to practice. And again, I know I've gone about liberating structures. If you're not familiar with it, highly recommend visit the website. The learning opportunities that Liberating Structure User Group offers is also really good, because you get to practice using it. I mean, I've practiced using tools that basically I found out about them when I was getting ready to do the presentation. So it's a really safe space to have a go at something. And then you think, oh, that's really good, I'm going to use that in other contexts. And that's what it's about. It's about building confidence. We don't always get it right. And that's okay. It's when we learn and share and learn together, that's when things really, really take off. And as already shared, we're really keen on looking at how we can build those links with Hexatime around goals and guides. So I'm going to pass this back over to yourselves with 2 other questions. Will these be helpful for you in your networks? And why would you say that? And I'll just pop my email address in the chat box. If anyone wants to get directly in contact, you are more than welcome. Brilliant, David. Thanks for that. And Sheena, appreciated. If you feel better putting it in the chat box, then I'll just invite people to answer. Do you think the resources may be helpful? And why?
Oh, it took a second, and now we have a lot of answers. Everybody took exactly the same time to write.
Yeah, the resources being a bit ad hoc, Pauline, that, and in a lot of ways, I mean, I'll put my hands up to self-interest. In a lot of ways, I created these as much for myself as for everybody else. Doesn't matter how many years or decades you've been facilitating different situations. You know, you sometimes something gets presented to you and you think, oh, I've never done that. Like a network trust assessment. That takes a lot of courage, and also to look at how trustworthy am I within a network. You know, these are the type of things that are explored in the self-reflection workbook, but done in kindness. And if people feel vulnerable and don't feel that it's ready for them at that time, that's okay. And again, you've got my email address. Genuinely drop me an email. You know, I am a very, I like to think I'm a very approachable person, and I try to be kind and supportive. But yeah, the basis of all relationships is trust. And yet how often do we look at how much trust there is in our networks? So June provides, which is shared in the resources, provides a tool that helps have that conversation in a way where people don't feel angry. Another thing as well is we've all been there. You know, we think a colleague's going to do something and they don't. And we can get quite, but sometimes there's a reason. So sometimes people, without meaning to, put their hand up and say, I'm going to do something, but they've not thought it through. They've not thought through, they've actually got the capacity to do it. So within the tools, there's a little infographic which we've made up, and we shared before this, and people who've used it have found it really helpful. And it really just says, what is my role right now? And it's something I would invite everyone to do before you go to a meeting. So in the centre, you've got the stewards. I will take responsibility. Then you've got the co-creators. Well, I'll help if you ask me to do something. And then you continue to move out of this circle to being curious, to being someone who's going to use the resources or whatever. Now, all of those, or I don't know, I get sent here because the person that was supposed to go couldn't make it. And all of those things have got value if we're honest with ourselves and also with the other people in the meeting. So if we say, well, I'm not going to commit to him today, I'm going to go away and think about this because I'm curious, that's okay. I personally, because I'm there, I'll put my hand up and do it, have found that really helpful, because sometimes I remind myself I'm only here to be curious. And I found that tool helpful for not getting angry if people haven't done what I thought they were going to do, because I've thought, where are they in that circle? You know, because with the best will in the world, people want to do things and things come up. So within networks, rather than getting into an accusation blame game, it's more about creating a safe space to understand. And in future, not to jump in and offer when actually capacity is not there, because that's okay. It takes time to digest. Definitely. That's why I had the kind of overfill cup. It's why I'm also thinking about the communities of practice and why there's going to be these other sessions, because sometimes when we have an opportunity to do things alone, but sometimes we're an opportunity to do it with others, that also helps us to take our learning. But what I would say is, don't do it all at once. If you decide to do the reflective workbook, it's all broken into chapters. Look at the one that's got most meaning for you and just work in one or two exercises. You know, how's the energy in my network? That might be the only exercise that you do in the next 3 months. That's fine. It's at your pace. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing the hassle with hierarchies. Hierarchies and power struggles came up pretty much every single conversation that we had. So we are really keen as well as the next year progresses to find out, did people use the tools? How did it work? Are there other additions? Because it may be in a year, 2 years time, it may be we tweak them, we adapt them, we add new elements on, because they won't be perfect, nothing is. But we tried really hard to make them as good as we could. And we hope people find them helpful. If there's any final comments, thoughts, or observations? And if not, then I would like to thank you again very, very, very much for coming along today, and to genuinely say, please, let's keep the conversation going. I'm still learning about this as well. And we'll learn together, so we do. So if there's anything that I can do to help, to be of support, please get in touch. Come along to the other sessions and use this extra 40 minutes. Oh, that's really good. Excited to get started. That's good. That's great. That's what we want to do today, create curiosity. So thank you so much, and delighted to say here is a gift of 40 minutes for people that had their diary planned out. So the weather is still nice. Don't use the 40 minutes to work, use the 40 minutes for you, because you are who is the networks are made of, and you matter. And remember, seeing a world just now that's full of challenges, you're part of the solution. So whenever you feel a bit kind of, what's it all about? Just remember, you're part of the solution. Thanks so much for coming along today. Really, really, really appreciate your time. And great stuff. Really humbled at the turnout, really humbled at people's response and people's kindness. You look after yourselves and hope to see you all soon. Remember, stay in touch. If you can't come along to a session, there's other ways we can stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Hilda, for the session and for this amazing work. And folks, I saw a lot of people mentioning that you still need to digest the documents that we just shared. Please do it in your own time. And just another reminder, we'll have the other session. If you have any questions, if you need some sort of extra guidance, we're here for you. You just need to show up over there. We're also trying to use your questions to teach the maximum amount of the number of people we can. And yeah, thanks very much for this celebrating this launch with us. It was a bunch of months working on this and figuring out how to organize it. It's very exciting to have it out finally. Thank you so much for the incredible amount of work that you put into this, Hilda.
And to you, Matthew and Joriam, because you have been there consistently throughout this whole journey, and we couldn't have done it without you. So no, really appreciated. Take care, folks. Thanks very much indeed. Look after yourselves and speak soon.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.